Before we begin this incredible story, tell us where you're watching from today. We love connecting with viewers from around the world who believe in the power of human kindness. The massive auditorium at Stanford University was electric. With anticipation, thousands of graduates in black caps and gowns filled the stage area, while families packed the stadium-style seating, cameras flashing and voices rising in celebration. The air buzzed with excitement, achievement, and the promise of bright futures ahead. But in the uppermost corner of the East Wing, 23-year-old Sophia Chen sat completely alone, tears streaming silently down her face. Her wheelchair was positioned against the wall, partially hidden behind a concrete pillar. Her graduation cap sat crooked on her long black hair, and her hands trembled as she clutched her diploma cover so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. While thousands celebrated around her, Sophia felt invisible, forgotten, and utterly heartbroken. "Daddy, why is that lady crying?" 7-year-old Mia tugged on her father's sleeve, her bright brown eyes filled with concern as she pointed toward the isolated graduate. Jake Rodriguez followed his daughter's gaze, his heart immediately sinking. At the sight, the young woman looked so profoundly alone that it physically hurt to witness. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs, and it was clear she was trying desperately to remain unnoticed in her pain. "Maybe she's just overwhelmed, sweetheart," Jake whispered back, though every instinct told him there was much more to this story. Graduation can bring up a lot of big feelings. Mia, with the pure intuition that only children possess, shook her head firmly. "No, Daddy, she looks really, really sad. Like when you cried after Mama went to heaven." The comparison hit Jake like a physical blow. His daughter was right. This wasn't tears of joy or overwhelm. This was the kind of deep, soul-crushing loneliness that Jake recognized all too well. From his own darkest moments after losing his wife 2 years ago. "Can we go talk to her?" Mia asked, her small hand slipping into her father's calloused palm. "You always tell me that when someone is sad, we should try to help." Jake hesitated. They were here to celebrate his sister Carmen's MBA graduation, and he'd learned to be careful about involving himself and Mia in situations they didn't understand. But looking at the young woman's isolation, remembering his own moments when he desperately wished someone would see his pain and reach out, he made a decision. "Okay, but we'll just say congratulations. If she wants space, we respect that." As they approached, Jake could see the young woman's name on her graduation program that had fallen to the floor. Sophia Chen, summa cum laude, Master of Business, Administration, with a concentration in corporate social responsibility. Her achievements were impressive, but her devastation was unmistakable. Mia, with the fearless compassion that came naturally to her, spoke first. "Hi, my name is Mia, and this is my daddy Jake. We saw you sitting by yourself and wanted to say congratulations on your graduation." Sophia looked up startled, her tear-filled eyes wide with surprise. For a moment, she seemed completely unable to process that strangers were speaking to her, as if kindness from unknown people was an entirely foreign concept. "Thank you," she managed, in a barely audible whisper, quickly wiping her face with the back of her hand. Jake knelt down to Mia's level, then looked up at Sophia with gentle eyes. "I hope we're not intruding. My daughter has an incredible ability to notice when people might need a friend." Something flickered in Sophia's expression. Surprise mixed with a desperate kind of hope, as if she couldn't quite believe this interaction was real. "No, it's fine. Thank you for stopping." Her voice was shaky, cultured, with just a hint of an accent that suggested a multilingual upbringing. Mia, completely oblivious to the emotional complexity of the situation, continued with characteristic 7-year-old directness. "My daddy says graduation is super-duper important. You must be really smart to graduate from this huge school. Are you the smartest person here?" "Mia," Jake warned gently, But Sophia surprised them both by letting out a small, genuine laugh, the first hint of lightness they'd seen from her. "I don't know about smartest, but I worked very hard for this degree," she said, her hand unconsciously moving to touch the armrest of her wheelchair. "It took me longer than most people because I had some challenges to overcome." Jake noticed the slight tremor in her voice and the way she avoided eye contact when mentioning challenges. There were layers of pain here that went far deeper than what was visible on the surface. "We're here to see my sister Carmen graduate," Jake offered, trying to keep the conversation light while giving Sophia space to share what she felt comfortable sharing. "She's been working on her MBA for 3 years while raising 2 kids. I'm incredibly proud of her." "That's wonderful," Sophia said, and Jake could hear genuine warmth in her voice despite her emotional state. "It's amazing when families can be here to celebrate these moments together." The comment hung in the air, and Jake caught the longing in her tone. He glanced around subtly, noticing what he probably should have observed immediately. No one had approached Sophia during their entire conversation. No family members searching for her, no friends stopping by for photos, no one at all. "Ah, you waiting for someone?" Mia asked with her typical innocent directness. Sophia's carefully maintained composure cracked slightly. "No, my father had an important board meeting in Tokyo. He couldn't reschedule." She paused, then added quietly, "My mother passed away when I was born, and my father, he's very focused on his work." The words landed heavily between them. Jake felt a familiar ache in his chest, the loneliness of experiencing life's biggest moments without the people who should be there to witness them. As a single father who had navigated countless milestones without his wife, he recognized that particular brand of isolation. But at least he and Mia had each other. This brilliant young woman had achieved something extraordinary and had absolutely no one to share it with. "Well then," Jake said, making a decision that surprised even himself, "would you like us to take some photos of you? Every graduate deserves pictures to remember this incredible achievement." Sophia blinked, clearly taken aback. "Oh, you really don't need to do that. I'm sure you want to find your sister and celebrate with her." "My daddy takes really good pictures," Mia announced proudly. "He took 1,000,000 pictures of me at my school play, even though I forgot my lines and just stood there." Despite her tears, Sophia smiled genuinely for the first time. 1,000,000 pictures sounds perfect then. Jake pulled out his phone and spent several minutes finding the best angles and lighting. Sophia straightened in her wheelchair, adjusted her graduation cap, and managed to produce a smile that, while still touched by sadness, radiated genuine accomplishment and gratitude. After taking several photos from different angles, Jake showed her the results. "These turned out beautiful. You should be incredibly proud. Summa cum laude is extraordinary." For a moment, Sophia's carefully maintained composure cracked completely. "I am proud," she whispered, and Jake could hear years of struggle, determination, and lonely victories in those 3 words. Mia, sensing the emotional weight of the moment, did what came most naturally to her. Without asking permission or considering social boundaries, she walked over and hugged Sophia tightly. "You're really brave," Mia announced, matter-of-factly, "and really smart. And I think you're beautiful, too, even when you're crying." Sophia closed her eyes and returned the hug, and Jake watched as tears spilled over again. But these weren't the same tears of loneliness from before. These were tears of gratitude, surprise, and perhaps relief at being truly seen and valued by another human being. "Thank you, Mia," Sophia said softly. "You're pretty amazing yourself." As families began filtering out of the auditorium around them, Jake realized they should probably head home. The drive back to their small apartment was long, and Mia would need dinner and help with her weekend homework. But something about leaving Sophia alone again felt fundamentally wrong. "Listen," he said carefully, "I know we just met, and please don't feel any pressure, but would you like to get some ice cream? There's a place nearby that Mia loves, and honestly, I think we could all use something sweet after such a big day." Sophia hesitated, and Jake could see her internal struggle. He recognized the look of someone who had grown accustomed to isolation, who had learned that it was safer to stay guarded than risk disappointment or rejection. "Please," Mia added, her eyes bright with hope. "Daddy never gets ice cream because he says we have to save money for important things, but today is really important, right?" Jake felt his cheeks burn with embarrassment at his daughter's honesty about their financial situation, but Sophia's response surprised him. "In that case, I'd love to join you, and ice cream is absolutely my treat. It's the least I can do for the two people who saved my graduation day from being a complete disaster." The ice cream shop was a small, family-owned place with mismatched furniture and children's artwork covering the walls. Away from the formal university setting, Sophia seemed to relax gradually. Jake found himself genuinely enjoying her company as her personality emerged from behind the walls of sadness. She was incredibly intelligent, thoughtful, and possessed a dry sense of humor that surfaced once she felt more comfortable. When Mia asked her what her favorite animal was, Sophia considered the question seriously before answering. "Elephants, because they never forget the people who are kind to them, and they always protect their family." "What kind of work do you want to do?" Jake asked, as Mia focused intently on her rainbow sherbet cone. "I want to help companies understand how to be more inclusive and socially responsible," Sophia explained, and Jake could hear the passion creeping into her voice. "Too many businesses make decisions based purely on profit without considering the impact on people with disabilities or minorities or anyone who doesn't fit their narrow definition of normal." Jake heard the personal pain underlying her professional aspirations. "That sounds like it could really change people's lives for the better." "I hope so. I want to believe that people in positions of power can learn to see beyond surface assumptions and recognize that everyone has value to contribute." "My daddy says people are like presents," Mia chimed in, ice cream coating her upper lip. "You can't know what's inside just by looking at the wrapping paper." Both adults smiled at the child's wisdom, and Jake felt warmth spreading through his chest that had nothing to do with the afternoon sunshine streaming through the shop's windows. As they talked, Jake began piecing together fragments of Sophia's story. She mentioned living alone in a high-rise apartment near campus, her father's constant business travel, the challenges of navigating a university designed for able-bodied students, but she spoke carefully, revealing just enough to maintain conversation. Without exposing too much vulnerability, Jake found himself sharing more than he usually did with strangers. He told her about his job as a construction foreman, Mia's adventures in second grade, their simple but content life together in their small two-bedroom apartment. "It must be incredibly challenging raising her alone," Sophia said gently. Jake was quiet for a moment, stirring his melted vanilla ice cream thoughtfully. "Some days are harder than others," he admitted. "I was barely 19 when Maria and I got married. We had Mia young, thought we had forever to figure everything out together." He paused, glancing at Mia, who was now entertaining herself by arranging the sprinkles from her cone into tiny patterns on the table. Maria was diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer when Mia was 4. She fought for over a year, but... His voice trailed off, but Sophia didn't push. She simply waited, giving him space to share what he felt comfortable sharing. "She died 2 years ago. It's been just Mia and me ever since, and honestly, some days I feel like I'm completely in over my head. I'm a high school graduate who knows construction and cars, trying to raise this incredibly bright, sensitive little girl who asks questions I don't know how to answer." "I'm so sorry," Sophia said, and Jake could tell she meant it deeply. "And for what it's worth, from what I can see, you're doing an extraordinary job. Mia is confident, kind, empathetic, and joyful. That doesn't happen by accident." "Thank you," Jake said softly. I worry constantly that she's missing out on things I can't provide. Dance classes, nice clothes, educational trips, a mother's perspective on growing up. Sophia leaned forward slightly. Jake, can I tell you something? I had every material advantage imaginable growing up. Private schools, tutors, trips around the world, the best of everything money could buy. But I never had what Mia has with you. A parent who sees her completely, who celebrates her thoughts and feelings, who makes her feel valued just for being who she is. They spent nearly 2 hours at the ice cream shop, and Jake couldn't remember the last time he'd felt so comfortable talking with another adult. Sophia had a way of listening that made him feel heard rather than judged. And when she laughed at Mia's elaborate stories about her teacher's classroom pet turtle, Jake noticed how her entire face transformed from sadness to genuine joy. As they prepared to leave, Sophia turned to Jake with an expression that seemed almost vulnerable. "Thank you," she said. "Both of you. I was dreading today so much, and you turned it into something I'll treasure forever." "Why were you dreading it?" Mia asked, her head tilted with curiosity. Sophia looked at Jake, who nodded encouragingly. "Sometimes when wonderful things happen in our lives, it can feel sad if we don't have family there to celebrate with us," she explained gently. Mia considered this seriously, her 7-year-old mind processing the complexity of adult emotions. "But we were there, and now we're like family friends, right, Daddy?" Jake felt his throat tighten with emotion. "Right, sweetheart." Sophia's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were definitely tears of joy. "I would really like that." As they prepared to part ways in the parking lot, Jake realized that something fundamental had shifted in his understanding of connection and family. Sometimes the most important relationships in life begin with the most unexpected encounters. Over the following weeks, an unlikely friendship began to flourish through text messages, phone calls, and video chats. Sophia started sharing photos of her daily life, her sleek apartment with its adapted kitchen, funny encounters during her job search, articles about corporate responsibility that sparked her passion. Jake reciprocated with pictures of Mia's school projects, stories from construction sites, and glimpses into their simple but content routine. Through these conversations, Jake began to understand the true scope of Sophia's isolation. Her father, David Chen, was the CEO of a multinational technology consulting firm who traveled constantly for work. Sophia had been raised primarily by a succession of nannies and housekeepers, attending elite institutions where her wheelchair made her stand out in ways she never wanted. "I became really good at being invisible," she told Jake during one of their evening phone calls after Mia had gone to bed. "It was easier than dealing with the stares and whispered conversations about the poor girl in the wheelchair." "What changed?" Jake asked gently. "The skiing accident during my sophomore year of college," Sophia said quietly. "It's hard to be invisible when you're the girl who crashed into a tree during a sorority trip and ended up paralyzed from the waist down. The accident had happened during what should have been a fun weekend getaway with her sorority sisters. A moment of inattention on an advanced slope had changed everything about how she moved through the world. My father flew back from a conference in Singapore for exactly 48 hours, long enough to ensure I had the best medical care money could buy and to arrange for private rehabilitation. Then he was gone again. I think my disability represented a problem he couldn't solve with a business strategy or by writing a check." Jake felt anger rise in his chest on her behalf, but he kept his voice gentle. "That must have been incredibly lonely and frightening." It was. "But you know what's strange? In some ways, the accident forced me to become stronger. I couldn't rely on being invisible anymore. I had to learn to advocate for myself, to demand accommodations, to insist on being seen and heard as a complete person rather than a diagnosis. Is that why you chose to focus on corporate social responsibility? Partly. I wanted to understand how people in power make decisions that affect others. I wanted to be in a position to influence those decisions someday, to be a voice for people who are often overlooked or dismissed. For his part, Jake shared stories about his own struggles and victories as a single father. He told her about the night terrors Mia had experienced after her mother's death, about learning to braid hair from YouTube videos, about the guilt he felt when he couldn't afford things other kids had. The hardest part, he admitted during one late-night conversation, is feeling like I'm not enough for her, like she deserves more than a dad who's figuring it out as he goes along. Jake, Sophia said firmly, you're raising an incredible human being. Mia is confident, compassionate, curious and joyful. Those qualities don't develop in children who feel unloved or unsupported. She adores you, and more importantly, she trusts you completely. That's not something you can fake or buy. Their conversations often stretched late into the evening, covering everything from childhood memories to dreams for the future. Jake found himself looking forward to these calls more than he'd looked forward to anything since Maria's death. One evening, about 6 weeks after they'd met, Jake's old pickup truck finally gave up completely, leaving him stranded at a job site with no way to get home to Mia, who was at after-school care. He called Sophia, frustrated and worried about the cost of repairs they couldn't afford and the time off work he'd have to take to deal with the situation. I can come pick you up, Sophia offered immediately. I have a van with hand controls. I can absolutely get you home to Mia. Sophia, you don't need to do that. It's rush hour traffic and you barely know us. Jake, you're my friend and friends help each other. What's the address? When Sophia arrived at the construction site 45 minutes later, Jake was amazed to see her navigating her adapted vehicle with complete confidence. Several of his co-workers watched with obvious curiosity as she transferred from the driver's seat to her wheelchair with practiced efficiency. This is Sophia, Jake announced to his crew, unable to keep the pride out of his voice. She just graduated summa cum laude from Stanford Business School. The respect in his colleagues' voices as they greeted her, and the way she engaged with them about their work, made Jake realize something important. He was falling for this woman, not despite her challenges, but because of the incredible strength and grace with which she faced them. During the drive to pick up Mia, Sophia asked about Jake's long-term goals and dreams. Honestly, I try not to think too far ahead, he admitted. It's been about survival for the past 2 years, keeping Mia healthy and happy, making sure we have a roof over our heads and food on the table. But what did you dream about before, when you were young and thought anything was possible? Jake was quiet for a long moment, watching the familiar streets of their neighborhood pass by. I wanted to start my own construction company someday, specialize in accessible home modifications, ramps, adapted bathrooms, things that help people with disabilities live independently. Maria and I used to talk about it all the time. Sophia glanced over at him, her eyes bright with interest. That's an incredible dream, Jake. There's such a need for contractors who really understand accessibility rather than just treating it as an afterthought. It's probably too late now, Jake said. I'd need capital to start a business, time to build a client base, and Mia needs stability. What if it's not too late? Sophia asked quietly. What if there were ways to make it work that you haven't considered yet? When Alexandra struggled with job interviews where potential employers seemed to focus more on her wheelchair than her qualifications, Jake became her source of encouragement and strategy. Tell me again why you want this particular position, he said during one of their conversations after she'd had a particularly discouraging interview with a major consulting firm. Because I want to help companies create more inclusive workplace cultures, Sophia replied, but her voice lacked its usual conviction. No, Tell me why you really want it, not the professional answer, the personal one. Sophia was quiet for a long moment. Because I want other people like me to walk into boardrooms and not have to prove they belong there before they can even start contributing. I want kids in wheelchairs to see people like them in leadership positions. I want to be part of changing how the business world thinks about disability and human potential. There it is, Jake said softly. That passion, that vision, that's what they need to see. Not your wheelchair, not any perceived limitations, but your fire and your brilliant mind. How do you always know exactly what to say? Because I see you, Sophia, the real you, and what I see is someone who's going to change the world, one boardroom at a time. Those conversations sustained Sophia through weeks of rejections and disappointing interviews. Jake's unwavering belief in her became an anchor when her own confidence wavered. Meanwhile, Mia had adopted Sophia as an honorary family member without any of the adults' complications or hesitations. She drew pictures for her, insisted on video calls to show off her latest art projects, and frequently asked when they could see Sophia again. It was Mia who suggested that Sophia join them for her school's family fun day when she mentioned feeling particularly lonely during a difficult weekend. "She can be like my aunt," Mia announced during breakfast one Saturday morning. "You always say families are made of people who love each other, not just people who are related, right, Daddy?" Jake felt his heart swell with pride at his daughter's capacity for inclusion, but he worried about putting Sophia in an awkward position. "Mia, that's really sweet, but I'm not sure—" Actually, Sophia interrupted when Jake called to explain Mia's invitation. "I would love that if you're sure it wouldn't be weird for you." "Weird?" Jake laughed. "Sophia, you've become one of the most important people in our lives. Of course it wouldn't be weird." The family fun day was held at Mia's elementary school on a perfect Saturday afternoon in late spring. Mia proudly introduced Sophia to her classmates and teachers as "my friend." Sophia, who's super smart and went to the big college. Jake watched with amazement as Sophia engaged naturally with the other children, answering their curious questions about her wheelchair with patience and humor that put both kids and adults at ease. "Does it hurt to be in a wheelchair?" "One little?" boy asked with typical childhood directness. "Sometimes," Sophia answered honestly. "But you know what? Everyone has things about their body that are challenging sometimes. Some people wear glasses to see better. Some people need hearing aids to hear well. Some people use wheelchairs to get around. We all have different ways of moving through the world." "Can I try sitting in it?" another child asked eagerly. "Sure, but only if your teacher says it's okay." Soon she had a line of second graders taking turns experiencing the world from her perspective, giggling and asking endless questions about how everything worked. Jake felt his chest tighten with emotion. As he watched her natural ease with the children, she would make an incredible mother someday, he thought, then caught himself wondering where that thought had come from. It was during a quiet moment, as they sat on a picnic blanket watching Mia demonstrate her cartwheel technique to a group of impressed classmates, that Jake realized how profoundly his perspective on life had shifted since meeting Sophia. "You know," he said carefully, "I've spent the last 2 years thinking that Mia and I were incomplete, like we were missing this essential piece that made other families whole." Sophia turned to look at him, her green eyes warm and attentive in the afternoon sunlight. But watching her today, seeing how confident and joyful she is, how naturally she includes others and shows kindness, I think maybe we've been whole all along. Maybe we just needed to find the right people to share our wholeness with. Sophia's eyes filled with tears, and she reached over to take his hand. "Jake, I've spent most of my life feeling like I was too much work for people to deal with, too complicated, too different. But you and Mia, you've never made me feel like anything other than exactly who I'm supposed to be." They sat in comfortable silence, watching Mia teach other children her elaborate cartwheel technique. The sun was warm on their faces, and Jake felt a peace he hadn't experienced since before Maria's illness. "What if," he said eventually, "we stopped thinking about what our families are missing and started focusing on what we could build together?" Sophia squeezed his hand tighter. "I'd like that more than you know." As the afternoon wound down and they packed up their picnic supplies, Jake realized that somewhere between that first graduation day and now, his feelings for Sophia had evolved far beyond friendship. He was falling in love with her strength, her intelligence, her capacity for kindness, her way of seeing potential in everyone around her. But more than that, he was falling in love with the family they were becoming together, the way Mia lit up around her, the way Sophia brought out the best in both of them. 3 months later, Jake got the call that would change everything. He was at a job site when his phone buzzed with Sophia's number. She rarely called during work hours, respecting his schedule, so he knew it must be important. "Jake, I got it," she said, her voice bubbling with excitement. "The position I've been hoping for, they offered it to me. Sophia, that's incredible. Tell me everything." She explained that a major consulting firm had been impressed by her innovative thesis on inclusive business practices and her passion during the interview process. They wanted her to head up a new diversity and accessibility initiative with a real budget and the authority to implement meaningful change. "It's everything I've been working toward," she said. "The salary is more than I ever imagined, and I'd have the opportunity to actually make a difference in how major corporations think about inclusion." "I'm so proud of you," Jake said, and he meant it completely. "You've worked incredibly hard. For this opportunity." There was a pause on the line, and Jake sensed there was more to the story. "There's just one thing," Sophia said, and he could hear nervousness creeping into her voice. "The position is based in Seattle. I'd have to relocate. Within the next 2 months." Jake felt his heart sink, but he forced enthusiasm into his voice. His own feelings couldn't matter when Sophia had achieved something this significant. That's a tremendous opportunity. You have to take it." "Do I?" Sophia asked quietly. "Jake, these past months with you and Mia, it's been the happiest I've ever been. I don't know if any job is worth giving that up." Jake set down his tools and found a quiet corner of the construction site where they could talk privately. "Sophia, you can't turn down your dream job for us. You've worked too hard and overcome too much to let this opportunity pass by." "What if it's not my dream job anymore? What if my dreams have changed?" The question hung between them, loaded with everything they'd been feeling but hadn't said out loud. "What are you saying?" Jake asked, hardly daring to hope. "I'm saying I love you, Jake, both of you. And if there's any chance we could build something real together, I'd rather take that risk than move across the country for a job that might leave me successful but alone." The conversation that followed was one of the most honest and emotional either of them had ever had. They talked about their feelings, their fears, their hopes for the future, and the practical challenges they'd face as a couple from very different backgrounds. Jake admitted that he had fallen in love with her somewhere between that first graduation day and now, but had been afraid to say anything because of their different circumstances and backgrounds. "I'm a high school graduate who works construction," he said. "You're brilliant and educated and destined for incredible things. I didn't think I had any right to ask you to consider a life with someone like me." "Someone like you?" Sophia's voice was incredulous. "Jake, you're one of the most intelligent, principled, caring people I've ever met. You've raised an extraordinary child while working physically demanding jobs and dealing with grief that would crush most people. You've shown me what it means to be truly valued and accepted for who I am. Don't you dare diminish yourself. But the differences in our backgrounds, our education levels, our financial situations, money and degrees don't create the kind of happiness I've found with you and Mia," Sophia said firmly. I've had financial privilege my entire life, and I've never been as content as I am sitting in your small kitchen helping Mia with homework while you cook dinner on that ancient stove." Jake felt tears he didn't know he'd been holding back start to fall. "I love you too," he said, "more than I thought I could love anyone again, but I can't ask you to give up everything you've worked for." "You're not asking. I'm choosing. I'm choosing us." "What about the job?" Sophia was quiet for a moment, and Jake could practically hear her mind working. "What if I countered their offer? Asked if I could work remotely with quarterly trips to Seattle, the work I want to do, changing corporate culture around inclusion and accessibility. That's something I could potentially do from anywhere. And maybe I'd be more effective doing it from a place where I have the support and love I need to do my best work." That evening, Jake sat Mia down for one of the most important conversations of both their lives. "Sweetheart, you know how Sophia has become really special to us?" Mia nodded enthusiastically. "She's like family." "Well, she is family in all the ways that matter, and I need to tell you something important. I love Sophia, not just as a friend, but the way I loved Mommy." Mia considered this seriously, her 7-year-old mind processing this new information. "Does that mean she might come live with us?" she asked hopefully. "Would you like that?" Jake asked. "Are you kidding? That would be the best thing ever. She could help me with my math homework and teach me about business, and we could all watch movies together every night." Mia paused, then added more thoughtfully, "Do you think Mommy would be okay with it?" Jake felt his throat tighten with emotion. Even 2 years later, Mia's intuitive understanding of complex emotions amazed him. "I think Mommy would want us to be happy," Jake said carefully. "And I think she'd love Sophia for making us smile so much and for loving us the way she does." Then, "Yes," Mia declared with the decisive authority that only children possess. "Let's be a family with Sophia." 2 weeks later, Sophia successfully negotiated a remote work arrangement with the consulting firm, with an agreement to spend 1 week per quarter in Seattle and attend important meetings via video conference. It wasn't exactly what the company had originally envisioned, but her ideas were innovative enough and her passion compelling enough that they were willing to be flexible. More importantly, it allowed her to build the life she actually wanted. One filled with daily love and connection, and the simple joy of being part of a family that saw her completely and valued her exactly as she was. 1 year later, Jake stood in the same university auditorium where they'd first met. But this time he was wearing a cap and gown himself. With Sophia's encouragement and support, he had enrolled in night classes to complete his associate degree in construction management and business administration. It hadn't been easy. Balancing work, school, and family time required careful coordination and countless late nights studying, but Sophia had been there every step of the way, helping him navigate unfamiliar academic processes and celebrating every small victory. Mia had become his most enthusiastic cheerleader, proudly telling anyone who would listen that her daddy was going to college and that they were going to start their own business, helping people make their houses work better for everyone. Now, as Jake's name was called, Mia jumped up from her seat in the front row and cheered just as loudly as she had that day they'd first approached a lonely graduate. "That's my daddy!" she shouted, causing families around them to smile at her enthusiasm. Sophia, sitting beside Mia, wiped away tears of pride and joy. On her finger was the engagement ring Jake had given her just 1 month earlier, a simple but beautiful band he'd chosen with Mia's help, offered with a proposal that was everything she had never known she wanted. "I don't have a lot of material things to offer you," he had said, "but I can promise you a life filled with love and laughter, and daily adventures with the most amazing kid in the world. Will you marry us?" Her yes had been immediate and tearful and complete. After the ceremony, as they posed for photos as a family, Jake reflected on the incredible chain of events that had brought them to this moment. A simple act of kindness on a graduation day had blossomed into a love story none of them could have imagined. Sophia had found the family acceptance and daily love she'd always craved. Mia had gained a mother figure who celebrated her curiosity and kindness, and Jake had discovered that love could grow in the most unexpected places and transform lives in ways he'd never thought possible. "Daddy," Mia said as they walked back, to their reliable used car, the one Sophia had helped them choose when the old truck finally died completely. "Remember when you said education was really important?" "I remember, sweetheart." "Well, I think kindness is important too, because if we hadn't been kind to Sophia that day, we wouldn't be a family now." Sophia reached over and ruffled Mia's hair, then took Jake's hand. "Sometimes," she said, "the most important lessons can't be learned in any classroom," as they drove home together to the